Listening to the tales of how my father won all those battles, it sounded like there was less time dodging arrows and more running down hordes of fleeing rats. But this is how it really is. The perfect art of letting the foolish string themselves up for a quick death. A most fascinating formula, those explosives. And ironic too, for I happen to know we learned its composition only from the Sassanid mages. I hope we spared their lives in return. It wasn't Uncle's way in particular, but nor was he the worst for such violence in rule. People will say he was moulded by adversity and made strong, or that Mars did it all. Either could be true. Anyway, I think we just about have this wrapped up, gentlemen. I'll be able to finish my letter to the new legate, get him to go and finish these idiots off. Not sure he'll be interested in getting orders from me, but with Magisters 1 and 2 both indisposed, it would be apt for someone to prevent the dissolution of order on the frontier, wouldn't it? Perhaps that's just not the Roman way. After all, if we win the war, then how will we produce the next war to win? Hello there, welcome back to Fields of Mars. In the previous episode, we temporarily at least brought peace to the east when we subjugated the Sassanids, gaining us all of their puppet states. So that stabilized things for a while. On the other side of the map, we were attacking the Angles and pushing them out of Gaul and Iberia to secure the Western Roman Empire and some more territory for ourselves, including the territories owned by Gaul when they decided to confederate with us, so impressed by our efforts. However, as implied, the Sassanids did go back on the deal. They attacked us with multiple armies and we're in the process of holding them off using Anicius the Younger. Things are going pretty well. We're mostly just sitting still and letting the enemy waste their ammunition on our testudos, then eventually stuff runs out of ammo, runs in and dies, and we've already killed most of the enemy's melee infantry using our large onagers, so the battle is more and more becoming about just sitting around and waiting for it to end. I gave our cavalry something to do by going and attacking routing units just to further increase the damage to the enemy's army once the battle was over, with Anicius taking part in that part of the fighting himself. Nothing really exciting going on there, although I did have some cavalry chasing enemy units right on the other side of the map, and they ran into some trouble because there were some enemy units in the forest just here that I couldn't see because of both the forest and the sandstorm weather conditions. So I thought I was being ambushed by some crossbow cav. I rushed to attack them, but actually there was a unit of camels right there which immediately surrounded and annihilated our cavalry, so we lost 2 squads right there really fast. Those camels went on to attack our front line, and we've seen before camels are pretty decent against armoured units. They have axes and maces as their weapons, which count as armour piercing things, so they're decent against legionaries and they have their charge bonus and the like to help them out. In order to try and make sure those melees didn't go the enemy's way, I started dropping large onager shots into them because it's a real mix. I'm definitely going to be hitting my own troops doing that, but I might be killing more of them or more value on their side. Fortunately, the enemy's army is at this point virtually destroyed, so the last of the camels ended up just routing away just before they broke through our line, so that went pretty well. Still had to take out a couple of ranged cav units. They never like to leave, so just dropped some explosives on them and convinced them that they don't want to stay. Our archers started chasing after them in the end as well. There we go, a close victory. Not too dissimilar to battles we've seen before against the Sassanids, where we held off multiple armies by just sitting in a line and letting them die. We did take some substantial losses. Our army's not really in condition to fight again after that, but neither's theirs, and that's really what we're looking for here, since this was their one chance to get us out of the area. There are those cavalry losses, unfortunate, but I guess that just teaches me for trying to hunt the enemy down through an area that could contain ambush troops. I didn't even really think about the possibility they would have something there. I noted my onager got nearly 1,000 kills in this battle. Very good stuff. So anyway, we'll send those Sassanids running off, and now we just need to see if we can finish the faction off, since they only have one region. We just need to attack it to once again put them in their place. There is an attack at Nova Trajana Bostra from Mazun. Paulus was inside at the time, so that's not the worst situation. Now there's an offer of marriage from the one puppet state that didn't betray us to join this Eastern Alliance, but we're not going to take it because they might get wiped out at any moment by all of our enemies. Now really annoyingly, Anicius got multiple misdirect army debuffs from these agents, and he's actually so misdirected that he's convinced he's already at his destination, so he has no movement points effectively. I don't really know how that worked, but it's very annoying because he is standing in an attrition zone. He can't go anywhere useful to get reinforcements now. At least we still have Septimus the Younger, who looks exactly the same, I might note, to move and attack the Sassanid settlement. Since all of their armies just got destroyed, there's nothing much here to stop us from just going in and making an assault. And in fact, because we have a big ranged advantage, this is one of those settlement assaults that just turns into a field battle right at the start, because they just quickly run everything out of the town to fight us before we arrive. Probably the right choice, because we would have destroyed them if they just stood there on the inside. Still going to go after their tower here, just in case we want to go into the town later on and to make it easier for us to advance. Plus we might get some kills by accident with missing shots there. Meanwhile, the large onager are going to start whipping out those explosives to thin out all of these low quality infantry. Not particularly valuable targets to hit with such powerful shots, but there's not much else to do at this stage. So we just bombard them to really hammer them as they come in to form up. Then once they are formed up, they'll have to face our army, which is going to be better in just about every way. These troops right at the front are being hit by arrows and javelins. This is at last a battle where our front line isn't in stationary testudo. I don't know how long it's been since we had one of these, but we can actually attack the enemy with javelins and charge at them in this fight. And those ranged attacks from the onagers doing a lot of damage. We start a fire just on the edge of town that pretty much devours an entire unit of spearmen. It was very effective indeed. Anyway, now that everything's out here, time for us to attack it. I started charging forward to engage these units. It's mostly low quality spears, lots of pagan band, which, as we've seen before, are much better than they seem, but still aren't going to be a match for our infantry, at least hopefully. Very messy because the enemy wasn't in a proper formation, so charging forwards makes our units fold about in all sorts of crazy ways, and it's going to open up gaps in the line as well that the enemy could in theory exploit here, but nothing too bad. Their cavalry on the flank just getting annihilated by our ranged stuff, and I've got some spears chasing them around here. Essentially, this battle is all but won at this point. We just need to grind all of these fights to their inevitable victories.
One more? Let me have one more. That one. Ready? Come on. Hold him. Hold him. Ha! Oh, it's going everywhere. Okay, back off. You keep it up. Marrow, look what happened. Absolutely covered. We need to sort this out. Actually, wait. No, we don't. Because if I make the speech looking like this, I think it might get the point across a little better. They aren't going to argue with me, are they? Let's splash them on the translators, too. Does feel a bit icky, but this isn't over. There's time for more. There's time for another round. Okay, Marrow, hold my cloak and keep it in the shade. Okay, careful now. Right, I'll go get some more material for the big show, as it were. I've got 4 already today. I reckon I'll be in the running for my own head count prize.
Somewhere in the mix we managed to kill the enemy general. That's going to spell the end for this army. What's left of it won't stay long on the battlefield. Some of them are still very valiantly charging towards us with tiny units, really not going to do anything. And at this point we're only taking losses to friendly fire from our own javelineers. The enemy just have nothing on us. Soon they're all retreating, fleeing back into the town, but that will count as the town being captured for us. A nice little decisive victory, so the enemy did make that quite easy for us, I must say. We're now going to have the opportunity to once again finish off the Sassanids. We're going to occupy the settlement this time rather than subjugating it. This will mean the Sassanids as a faction now have just a few half-dead armies around the place, no more ability to recruit. We just have to wait, essentially, for those guys to die, and then we will have them destroyed forever. As long as we don't lose this territory to them, or lose any territory to them, they could still take something from us if they really tried, potentially at least. We'll see what they do. Now, I wanted to deal with this problem up north, where the Atropatane army there in the forests can attack 2 of our settlements from where it's standing, and I wasn't sure how to defend against it. I ended up coming up to this border with them because I noted they liked going through that pass quite a lot before. So what I'm going to do is put an ambush there and hope that they'll think they can come and attack us once again for free, like they've done so many times, and finally we'll get a chance to actually screw them over as they do that. Varus is now leaving the theatre for good, taking his army, which is dying of smallpox at the moment I believe, and marching right away. He has tons of movement points, he can go almost all the way to the other side of Anatolia right now. He's going to be making his way back to Attila, as I mentioned previously. Still some way to go on that mission. Now against Lazica, I've got Barber's army here. His army is terrible, but I thought I might be able to sneak over the border and take their capital there. Unfortunately, it was guarded by an army, so I thought, well, we won't bother. Let's go into an ambush, though, just in case they try to attack us. We might be able to get some kind of upper hand there if they fall for our little trap. Now all the way back in Gaul, we're still going after the Angles here, just getting our armies together to team up against these trapped Angle forces. They're really damaged from their previous engagements with the other Romans, so really this is no problem. I didn't even get my 3rd army into the reinforcements here. It's actually the garrison of the nearby settlement taking part in the fight. Could have rearranged it to get the extra army in, but we don't need to. We'll just kill it as it is. That's going to be more glory for Eutropius as he clears the barbarians from our territory. And with that sorted, there's just 1 Angle army left. I think that one's half dead as well, so we'll have to spend a couple of turns getting to the point when we can safely attack it, just to make sure we don't take any losses whatsoever and maximise our personal glory. Now the Sassanids do go for some sieges in their turn. They pretty much have to do this because they're about to be defeated as a faction, so they need to try something. After a delay while they do all their agent actions, they tried to make the assault against a town with an army in it, with only a couple of units, so they are desperate, but far too desperate to actually achieve anything, it seems. Down that force goes with no problems whatsoever. That's nice, because actually chasing them around the desert would have been far more annoying. Now Lazica comes to us with a peace treaty, offering quite a decent amount of money for it as well. I didn't want to take it at first though, because I've actually prepared a fleet and forces to attack Lazica, and if I don't use it for that, there's not much else I can use it for anywhere nearby, so I wanted to get some sort of deal that really screwed them over. I asked them to be my tributary state. Instead they said I'll be your puppet state, not quite sure what the difference is, and they're going to give me some money, and well, that's a pretty good deal for us, so we'll just take it. That not only ends the war, but it puts them on our side of the other war, so now they have to attack our enemies. Pretty handy, I must say, so that resolved very nicely. Now Atropatane do start moving, as I thought they might, towards that pass, and they get ambushed by Costa, so this is very convenient for us. The battle is pretty much an auto-resolve, but I wanted to do it anyway, just because ambush battles are pretty rare. Let's have a tiny bit of variety, and this battle is going to be pretty quick, suffice to say. So all we need to do is charge down this gigantic hill that we started on. The enemy are just in a column formation standing right there. Mostly just trash spears, so nothing to worry about. Our infantry is pretty bad as well, but it's still slightly better than theirs. Plus we're going to be blowing them to smithereens with our large onagers, and we've got archers and slingers and javelineers and the like to inflict further damage. Although the hill is so steep, it's actually kind of difficult to hit the enemy, and it's very easy to hit our own side. You can see there I'm setting part of my own unit on fire, and that's going to happen a couple of times throughout the battle, unfortunately, but still it's worth taking losses on our own side, because when we do hit the enemy we're just absolutely annihilating them. A couple of units there just devastated in a moment by a hit by the large onagers. On the other side of the line the same thing happening, the enemy general trying to escape as all of his troops are blown up around him. Not going to happen. I had some scout equites behind him waiting for him to do that, so we can now chase him down. Really, we've got this at this point. Setting my own units on fire in the background there with our flaming shots from the large onagers. That's probably the major source of casualties in this engagement for us. Down goes the enemy general, and that's pretty much the end for the rest of his army. They try and get out of there. They're being subject to a pursuit by fire and then a pursuit by spear as we chase them down the hill, bringing this battle to a very rapid end. A decisive victory. Probably actually got a worse result than we would have by just auto-resolving it, since I was shooting my own men half the time, but it doesn't really matter since we still lost far less than the enemy did, and we could even take on warriors to make that a tiny bit better for us. Off the survivors go. We'll actually be able to chase them down later if we like. First though, Macran have a battle for us. They bring 2 armies to attack Septimus in his new little home here. It's a roughly balanced engagement. We seem to have an advantage and the enemy armies don't look particularly good or well suited to a siege attack, but we are going to need to fight this one ourselves to make sure this works, because this might not be the end of the new waves of infantry we're going to have to face from the new east.
We will not rest for even a single day. That is what the gods are looking for. Weakness. Septimus seemed like the most powerful man in the Empire, but they took his life without hesitation. Now their eyes are on us, and those that fall each hour are those who did not impress them. They want to know that the chosen champions of the Empire are worthy of their respect. The man who makes it to the gates of Rome shall be its master. That is the game they make us play. Victory here, like in war, can come only if we are unrelenting, proud, powerful, forceful, if we are Roman. Yes, that is what this is all about. We are to be Romans, like the old Romans. We are to prove that we are the masters of this world, in deeds and in character. I will not let any of us fail without a fight.
I chose to defend one particular part of the town's exterior because it would allow me to set up a barricade and do the age-old trick of letting enemies come super close and then annihilating them with javelins. And we've already got a few units looking like they're going to come this way, so hopefully you can draw them in and get rid of them. Meanwhile, a whole bunch of other units are going to go for some regular attacks where I've got the choke points blocked off with our legionaries. I'm also currently distracting their onager. I had the scout cavalry in the corner of the map and the onager started rumbling after them to kill them, so that was good. It just means it won't take part in the actual fight. So here they come, ready to attack our box of legionaries, defending the main approach they were trying to get through. And most of their troops won't be able to fight because of this narrow causeway they have to go through. And of course, now that they're all grouped up, they're going to be a delicious target for our large onager sitting safely in the middle of the town to just throw things out there and start taking out enemies en masse. In particular, we want to kill those camels before they edge too far forwards and give our legionaries any trouble. Most of the enemy's army is coming through this one causeway, so we can know we've got a nice dense concentration of troops to take down, but they are slowly going to realise that sending all their men down one approach isn't the best idea. At the same time, they actually weren't going for my little javelin trick. Those units that were coming towards the barricade just kind of stopped and stood there for a while, so it was pretty annoying because I had to keep an eye on that while trying to manually fire the large onager as well, just to make sure I didn't miss my opportunity. And the frontline engagement, for what it's worth, is just going to go absolutely fine. The enemy have lots of low quality units at the front, so our legionaries will do okay just standing there. Eventually though, as I mentioned, they are going to bring some troops around to open up another front. Here I've just got some spears standing, blocking off the route into the centre of the town. The enemy decide to come at us with one of their general's cavalry units. That's fine by me. Probably most of the damage here is coming from the fact I've got archers and legionaries who are throwing things forwards and probably hitting tons of our own troops. But at least we'll get this chance to take out one of the enemy's officers. I think they've got a couple of generals in here actually, and they are going to gradually send more and more stuff to that approach. Meanwhile, for the other approach, we're going to try and clear things up. I sent out the cavalry, including Septimus, to go and kill some slingers. They were taking some fire, unfortunately, from horse archers. They actually lost a few men in that melee. But the objective is to hit the back of what's left of what's attacking us from that first position. There's actually very little still alive because the large onager just cleared everything up, and the legionaries wouldn't have been doing a bad job as well. They probably got a ton of kills. But with everything together there, we are going to totally dominate. And just in time, the enemy started a new battlefront, so I can switch my focus to looking at that one instead as our cavalry finish up everything over there. Finally, the enemy did go for my barricade, so I was very joyous to see that we're now going to take out a couple of their quality infantry units. Those guys are okay against legionaries, they're a mace unit, so nice to just delete them in a matter of seconds. Our Matiarii having a nice easy time. The enemy didn't seem to be sure whether they wanted to stay here and go for the barricade, Running away was absolutely the right choice, but they weren't willing to make it, and as a result, all of them are killed and they achieve absolutely nothing. All that's left is a pile of bodies with javelins sticking out of them. A very effective attack, and we've got plenty of ammo to keep going, but unfortunately the enemy have decided to go and attack other points, so we're not going to get to use those guys anymore. We also, by the way, took out that onager in the background, although it did get a few shots off on our scout cavalry. They got their revenge in the end. So now the battle is coming down to another grind, perhaps an even bigger grind than the first one, as everything else the enemy have is now pushing against our spearmen here. And as I said, we're probably taking losses from friendly fire, but I'm willing to lose units like Palatina because they're not especially effective. And while the enemy are stuck there, we can hit them with the large onager, of course. The shots are kind of difficult because of the angle and the hill, but we can still attempt to drop things onto them. And a nice fun fact to note there is that when you use manual fire, it actually doesn't animate the onager. The shot just appears and flings itself across the sky. The onager just sits there. So that's interesting to know. The spear cohort, who were helping to hold the enemy in position, did a pretty good job in this battle, and I just wanted to mention that because I've given them so much criticism before. This time they held the line very effectively and weren't just wiped out instantly as they sometimes seem to be, and we can compare them very directly to the Palatina Auxilia beside them, who have been very damaged by taking parts in pretty much the same melee and taking the same bouts of friendly fire, perhaps anyway. So all we needed to do is wait for the enemy to die, and to speed things up, I moved my onager into a slightly better position to get line of sight on the enemy, and all this stuff that's sitting at the back of the column not able to fight was now coming under fire from these explosive shots. And at this point the enemy just chain routed. They'd already lost so much stuff, I think they were about to go anyway. And off they run, so a nice effective defense, just going to blow up a couple more as they escape for my own personal amusement. And that's the end of that. A nice, tidy, decisive victory where the enemy's losses were extreme in comparison to ours. Very good work. We've perhaps bought ourselves a couple of turns now where we won't be attacked. I was thinking that one day I'd like to go to Britannia, if that is going to be at all possible. They have a grand building or two in Londinium left over from the days of Constantinus, you know. Back then all this was ruled by the Emperor of Rome. Isn't there something familiar and heartwarming about having the magisterium in charge now? You see what I mean? It reminds me that I must inform the scions of the Emperor down in Iberia that I've been awfully kind to them, killing all these Nordic vagabonds, and asking for not a single coin in return. I rather think these days that it might be more prudent to have our laws apply to them directly, especially with their stubbornness over these Christians, present company excluded, of course. So that's the invasion wrecked. The second army that they brought did get away with some of its units still alive, or a decent portion of its units still alive, so they will be able to come back, probably in a couple of turns, as I said, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that. Although one of their armies is also plagued at the moment, so that's nice. That'll stop them from regenerating. Now I had to make a commander replacement on the 2nd Legion, the one commanded by Anicius the Younger, so looks like some more bad news is on the way. Indeed, another assassination attempt has gone through. Anicius is still alive. This is the second time he's been wounded by Eastern assassins, but this is just annoying to have another high-level commander not be on the front line anymore. He'll be back soon enough, so once he is back we'll take his army and go on the offensive. And in the meantime, since his army is pretty much destroyed by recent battles and attrition, we're just going to hang around with his replacement commander, who looks exactly the same as him, like all commanders seem to do these days. I'm going to move down towards Siraf because there's actually a rebellion there. In the past I stated I didn't mind if it fell to rebels since we didn't need it, but now that things have kind of calmed down, we might as well try and keep it and get some income off it, especially because we actually have 2 of the regions in that province now. I'm looking over here at Mazun's territory and thinking maybe we can actually just counterattack them after we defeated all that stuff in the battle. Maybe they don't have much left. The reason to not do that would be to go north with our armies instead to try and relieve this siege. You can see the enemy army is almost nothing, but our garrison is also almost nothing, so they might be able to actually win that siege and re-establish the Sassanids up there. But I decided we'll probably get away with it, so it will be safe to spend this turn at least going to take a look over the border. Unfortunately, we saw they've got a full navy in that settlement down there and somewhat of a garrison. It probably would be possible to beat it, but it wasn't important enough for me to actually go and do it, since the enemy might just go around me and attack something else if I move my forces onto the edge of their territory like that. So I just pushed their armies back to get them away from our border, then we'll go back on the defensive and just continue to see what happens on that front. Now with Costa, I can advance into this Ryse territory and start moving towards Atropatene's capital. There's a chance here that we can actually take that faction down and knock them out of the war. On the way, we meet the survivors from that previous ambush. They stand and fight for some reason, but they don't really have any chance, so we'll just immediately wipe them out. That was very generous of them. So with that sorted, we can now keep going. The question is, do they have anything else? We've just taken down a full stack of theirs over the last turn or two, but unfortunately, they did have another stack standing just outside the settlement, plus the settlement has a small garrison. So making an attack would be a tiny bit hard. I was noting there that we don't have enough cunning to do a night attack, so I'm just going to stand around and monitor the situation. Maybe that army will come and fight me and we'll be able to win and then take the settlement, or maybe it'll just go somewhere else and we'll be able to win that way. It also reminded me that we needed to go and ask all of these minor factions for peace, and spoilers, none of them were willing to go for peace with us, so all of our wars in the east will just continue as before. Now, Barber's army is going to go on a little bit of a mission towards Aria, because since he has nothing to do, with Lazica now being our puppet state, we're pretty safe in this little part of the border. We might as well go on the offensive, even if we don't have particularly good troops or equipment with which to do it. Still, we can easily auto-resolve this settlement. I thought there would actually be an army in it, but there isn't. Aria did have loads of armies around the place, but I'm not sure where they are at the moment, so we'll sneak in here. I did want to liberate it at first, but that wasn't an option, so I was happy to occupy it instead, since I realised this place is quite a good frontline position. It's on a kind of choke point between various other regions, and it's a walled settlement, so it's a pretty nice place to defend a wide area from, and it's worth quite a lot of money as well, so we'll just sit in it, even though it's going to be pretty hard to control on its own. Back in Gaul, we're teaming up once again to just annihilate the last surviving army of the Angles. Not much here, lots of trash units in poor condition. The main achievement in winning here is that we're killing a nice high-level general, so that will perhaps screw them over a little bit, but not really, I imagine. So with them dead, the question is, can we get the Angles to get a peace treaty with us? Because the Angles are allied to the Allemans, so they might call them in at any moment. We need to be wary of that. I can at least use these armies, now that they're free, to solidify our defences along the front line to increase our preparation against a potential attack. Unfortunately, the Angles didn't want peace, neither did the Huns, which I also checked here. But overall, across the Empire, things are looking pretty stable, even with these wars still going, so we may be able to actually get some permanent solutions to our long-term problems going in the very near future. The Roman administrators in the east had absolutely no tolerance for the demands placed on them by their new people. There is no record of matters of statecraft even being discussed in the formal courts known to have taken place. It was in effect a military dictatorship with a single objective: prevent the people of the east from taking up arms against Rome ever again. For the troops, these campaigns brought advantages. They could pillage whatever they wanted from the occupied areas, for that would only make the wealthy classes weaker, and that meant less power was available to rally against Rome. The draconian policy made sure that the people were absolutely opposed to the empire, but with few weapons and poor organisation, challenging it was deadly. That is all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and special thanks to the OfficiallyDevin patrons. So we'll keep clearing up this mess as we prepare for a new era of Roman dominance in the next episode of Fields of Mars.